It's time to get sexy, so watch Secular Sexuality Live Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTSS and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callsex.
Hello, good people in internet land, and welcome back to another episode of The Nonprofits, the show where we discuss news and topics of the day from a skeptical humanist perspective. My name is Cynthia McDonald, and today's topics are hot, hotter, and the hottest of them all. Until next week, when we actually do other topics that happen to be hot, hotter, and the hottest of them all. So, this show is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the separation of religion and government and promoting positive atheism. Now, I am not here running this runaway train on my own. Nay, nay. I have other skepticrats, non-profiteering people running things and doing things as well. So I'm going to start by introducing them. To my far left, I would like to say, hello, secular Rarity.
Hey, I'm excited to be on with two incredible people and one incredible cartoon. So
Nice. Yes. And speaking of cartoons, the coolest cartoon on internet land, Tale out of Tale. How you doing, love?
Thank you so much. I'm so happy. I'm surrounded by cool people today. I'm always surrounded by cool people, but today I have the coolest next to me. Look at this. Secular, Dan, and Cynthia. Come on. How can I be so lucky? So I'm extremely happy. Thank you.
We are so cool. We are ice cold. How about that? And we got the coolest of them all. Truth Wanted's own, another Atheist Community of Austin show, host joining us today, Objectively Dan. How you doing?
I'm great. I'm just glad I wasn't the cartoon being referred to by Secular Rarity there. You know, I was worried about that for a second, but I'm glad that got established. So very happy to be here.
Well, you know, oh wow. Well, it wouldn't have been so far off, Dan. You know, your shows happen
Maybe
to
not.
have, you know, cartoon thumbnails on them.
They do have a cartoon aesthetic to their thumbnails. That's true. I'll give you that.
Yes, and I have to say that any person that is immortalized in the Truth Wanted cartoon graphic gallery should be grateful, as they should be. Yes, indeed.
That makes at least 3 out of the 4 hosts here, so I could see how you would feel that way. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, I do. Well, I guess that we are just going to go ahead and just get right into it, rather, because we are. That's right, we are, and we have some stuff that we got to talk about, folks. So today we're talking about Popewatch, Benny too sloppy or lazy to stop child rapist. We also are talking about ivermectin to the incarcerated. And then in our next segment, we're going to talk about NASA consulting with mystics. And then at the very last segment, don't pray about it, just pray about it. Just wait until we actually get into it so you can see what we non-prayed but sprayed. So without further ado, won't we go ahead and dive right in? Teo, I believe that you're taking this for us.
Yep, I'm taking it. And so we have to start on this week's segment, Popewatch. Come on, guys.
Boom, boom.
That's
pow,
not
pow.
a scary. Pew, pew, pew. Okay, guys, you have to practice your. Oh gosh, I'm scared. I mean, come on. We practiced this before. Anyways, talking about the Pope and the awful stuff that he keeps doing. Thank you, BBC. This week, they released this article which says former Pope Benedict failed to act over abuse. New report finds published. I remember that when I was a child, people would call this guy Nassinger because he's German and his last name is Ratzinger. I always opposed because it was insulting, but now that I see how he behaved, it's like, screw this guy, he's awful. From the article, this Pope failed to act over at least 4 child abuse cases when he was Archbishop of Munich. A German probe into the Catholic Church has alleged. Pope Benedict, Jose Ratzinger, held the position from 1977 to 1982, and he has denied all accusations because obviously he's going to be innocent. And yeah, guys, we have talked about this over and over in here. I would love to say, oh, this is surprising, but it isn't. Sadly, it isn't. Every single time that I am here talking about the Catholic Church, it gets worse and worse. We have talked about dead children in Canada and their churches. We have talked about this French institution, Les Paroles et Liberté, the Liberated Word, an organization that is made up by victims of the Catholic Church, and that they have revealed that over 5,000 children have been constantly raped by nuns and priests in the last decade in the houses of the church. We have talked about the situation with Sister of Mercy. The Sister of Mercy. We have talked about how the Pope blamed victims in South America. We have talked about how the Mother Teresa tried to protect her friends who were pedophiles just to stop the church from being stained, among many, many, many other things that keep happening. So yeah, I'm not surprised about this. It's very sad, and it breaks me every time that I read how the Catholic Church is protecting pedophiles constantly, how these guys, Pope, he knew what was happening, but he's denying it. But come on, it was informed to him, and he did nothing about this. So it really saddens me that we keep reading this news, more information keeps coming out, and people keep protecting the church. That really breaks me, guys.
Yeah.
I don't know about you.
Yeah, I wish that we could say that this is rare, right? But we are constantly talking about these topics, specifically with the Catholic Church and child rapists actually getting off, and it's not just children; it's also the nuns that happen to serve in the Catholic Church. A bunch of different orders have been reported sexual misconduct, sexual abuse, even forcing abortions or taking their children and putting into adoption, just to cover up the sexual abuse. So it's rancid, unfortunately, in this organization. And another thing that I was even looking in my research that, there has been reports of sexual misconduct and sexual child abuse from the Catholic Church since the 11th century. That was the first documented case, and I'm just like, I don't quite understand how an organization is supposed to tout such benevolence to the people who come to it in order for them to receive some type of solace, feeling God, etc., but have to constantly, or your children and others who may even want to serve in certain offices are constantly under the guise that something bad might happen to the children that you send to school with them, or the nuns that you would send to an order, or any of those things. It's just absolutely awful. But I'm going to stop talking because I can talk about this forever, but I'm going to go ahead and just move it on down the line. Dan, what you got on this?
So again, it's unfortunate, as you've mentioned, that this is being talked about because, quite frankly, I mean, it's stopped becoming news at this
Right.
point. That, oh, look, another case has been found of abuse and cover up, right? And so, like, people, often bring up, well, why pick on the Catholic Church, right? There's all kinds of organizations that hold children, and abuse happens, and that's completely true. The difference, of course, being they don't all claim to be the moral authority of the world, but also that other organizations are going to have structures inherent to that organization to prevent that kind of abuse that's happening, right? And time again, the Catholic Church has shown that they have not been doing that. Instead, of course, the typical fare is when something comes up, they move those pastors to avoid controversy in that area and to give them working. It's always protecting the clergy first over that of the victims, which is really, really unfortunate. If the president of a company is found to be directly in the knowledge of their own employees having some sort of sexual misconduct, I mean, that just wouldn't fly. It would be absolutely astounding, and there would be huge news over this, right? It's one thing if part of the Catholic Church was dealing with it. Usually when you find these kinds of stories, it can be an archbishop or it can be other people who work in that hierarchy, but it doesn't always necessarily go up to the Pope. That's what's interesting about this story. And I think what people need to take away from this is direct implication of the Pope, right? And if the Pope is found knowing of this, then that just has bigger consequences overall for the integrity of the church. So, I'm not going to go into detail because I don't know if we even have time to go into the history of what some of the history of the clergies look like, but it's actually quite unusual that the Pope is directly involved in some of this. I mean, again, it does happen, but it's usually not that high up on the hierarchy. So.
Yeah, it's usually when you hear about stories, it's usually like, the priest over a diocese, or even like, like you mentioned, like the archbishop, or there have even been reports of cardinals being, part of like these particular scandals, but like, implicating the Pope. And just to preface, the article doesn't say that he actually committed the committed sexual misconduct. It was that he knew about it. He knew about at least 4 different cases and did absolutely
knowledge of
nothing.
allegations.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Knowledge of allegations.
Exactly.
Also,
Right.
maybe it's related. There is a relation because he's not the Pope anymore. It's just the ex-Pope. Maybe that's why he can be touched now. But maybe the same thing is happening with the current Pope, and we just don't know because it's the Pope.
Well, I'm glad you said that, Teo, because when we were preparing for this, I specifically said the only thing I want to focus on personally with this article are the last 3 paragraphs. And for everybody out there watching us when this premieres, and for everybody, checking this out later on, please go to the links, read these articles that we were talking about, because here's why. Here's the thing that infuriated me when I read this, that Cardinal Reinhard Marx was in charge. He was in charge of this place where these terrible things happened. Now, again, as Dan and Cynthia have said, he wasn't accused of committing these acts. But what happened under his watch is undeniably his responsibility. And Cardinal Marx sees those wrongdoings. He sees his own failings. And he asked the current Pope, old Frankie, he said, hey, put somebody else in my place because I failed. And the Pope rejected that. That right there, in my opinion, is the rot, is the absolute degradation and garbage that is at the core of this. And the first thing that came to my mind, and I know I'm not going to say it perfectly, but Christopher Hitchens said something along the lines of, if I love you, I can pay your debt. And if I love you more, I can serve your time in jail, but I cannot absolve you of your wrongdoings. I cannot take away your responsibility. And anybody that offers to do that is not somebody we should put our trust in, is not somebody that we should join. And that infuriated me when I read that, because it's happening right now. Still to this day, they are doing things. This Pope that everybody said he's gonna make changes, he's gonna bring about better things. Apparently not.
You're absolutely
Apparently
right,
not.
secular Rarity. It'd be one thing if there were active measures being taken place, and of course the church has said, "Oh yes, we're doing these restructurings, we're trying to figure things out." But it's well known at this point that some of the ongoing legal battles that are happening in the United States, but also worldwide, are lawyers from the Catholic Church specifically trying to change laws in this country, specifically laws that are reflecting one, age of consent, but also when you can report on
Mhm.
sexual abuse cases. That one
Yeah.
specifically. Okay. And the same lawyers are also doing the same thing with protection of the Boy Scouts of America. Just as a side note, as an Eagle Scout myself, the reason why they're actually sharing some of those legal resources and why it's to that interest is because the bankruptcy with the recent Boy Scout case, if that falls through, might actually have some liabilities on the church itself rather than the sexual abuse lawsuits that happen with the Boy Scouts. So that's an aside. But point being, right? Like they're still actively trying to make it so that they're going to have less money to pay at the end of the day, right? That's what a lot of these cases are about. And so it's kind of talking off out of both sides of the mouth, right? It's like one thing they're saying, we want to try to change things. We want to try to make things better. We acknowledge the problem. The other thing is, let's make sure that we can change all these laws to make sure that we don't have to run into this problem when it does come up. So,
You just made me remember that in December, we were talking here about how the Catholic Church is spending more money fighting against the victims of sexual abuse instead of just paying the money that they should be paying.
Yep.
And then these guys go and ask people for donations in order to pay for those instead of, using the money of the church.
Yep.
There are so many layers of awfulness in here that it's impossible not to talk about the Catholic Church and get angry and upset about all these disgusting things that they are doing. Disgusting, that's the word. It's described the whole church, the whole situation, and everybody trying to protect these pedophiles, these rapists, not even pedophiles, so rapists, child rapists.
Yeah.
Even non-rapists. I remember when the Pope had to admit that there were some nuns who were sexual slaves, and as you mentioned, they had to have abortions every certain time because of the church and all of that.
It's absolutely egregious. And even if we're going even further, speaking about the Catholic Church and like how of course, this is the largest landowner in the world, and they are sitting on billions and billions and billions of dollars, and they take in money, as you said, Teo, and ask for money, and they get a lot of money, not only from donations but also from government entities because of their charity status. Okay, so they can get like grants, and they get other government government funding, and also they're tax exempt, right? Because of this is a faith-based organization. And even reports have come out, I want to say over the last 3 years, on how Catholic Charities, part of the money that they were taking in to even run the charity, majority of it did not go to charity. A lot of it went to paying off sexual abuse cases, and also lawyers' fees and law and all this other stuff. And the very thing that it was set up to do, which was to provide charity for people who need it, we're not really necessarily getting it. I know that even in the city that I live right now in, Catholic Charities basically has a monopoly on services here, and I'm pretty sure that it is pretty it pretty much copies itself, like as you go from one municipality to another. I know that they are the ones who are in charge of getting people who happen to call for shelter off the street. So, they get the call, not necessarily like a city service, to go ahead and pick people up and then take them to a shelter. And a lot of the shelters that are preferred are faith-based ran ones. And a lot of them are ran by the Catholic Church. And that's even more money that they're able to even get from government entities in order for them to stay in business. But, again, it comes to the point where, it has to be to the point where we just got to say enough is enough. Because if we're really not holding organizations like the Catholic Church truly accountable for the acts that it has committed for centuries now, multiple centuries now, I mean, we're still going to be in the same rut over and over again, and still talking about this over and over again. I would love to see some action concerning this whole thing that we're dealing with when it comes to the Catholic Church and sexual abuse cases and people who have been victimized by them multiple times, and they're not getting justice. So before we move on, let's go ahead and just get some final thoughts from everybody. I'm just going to start with you, Secular Rarity, because you didn't talk as much. So
I know that's surprising. I know everybody out there will be like, how the hell has he kept his mouth shut? So again, we're still early into the show, folks, and I don't want to get too pissed off about this, but I am very, very angry about this. And I think a lot of us will be tempted, as good skeptics as we try to be. We'll say, whoa, whoa, whoa. Are we sure this is something that's like the Catholic Church? Is this really something core to their ideology and organization? Bad people are everywhere in positions of no. This is entirely something that has at its core an ideology that helps perpetuate this garbage, because there is an individual who has the direct line to the almighty, to the all-powerful Sky Daddy. And that Sky Daddy and that person, when you feel bad because you did something bad, he'll wipe it away and he'll forgive you and he'll absolve your guilt. He'll absolve your bad feelings. And that's disgusting. And that's harmful to the core. So yes, bad people are all over the place. But some places allow those people, hide those people, and perpetuate the garbage that they do. And that's this organization.
Word up. Can't say any more. Teo.
Yeah, I totally agree with secular again. And I guess my only question would be, people, what the heck are you waiting for? How the heck can you see all this awful stuff that the Catholic Church is doing, and you still keep protecting the freaking church? You keep giving them money. What the hell is wrong with you people? What do you want from them to stop protecting and giving them money? Do you want them to go outside and start killing people? Who am I kidding? They would probably still defend them if they are able to defend them after this awful institution protecting child rapists. And it's so terrible because they always are going to be looking for excuses, and that makes me sick. That's it. It's disgusting. It's awful. And people who want to protect those pedophiles, no, not pedophiles, sorry, child rapists, they make me sick. That's all I have to say.
Yo enferma también. Dan, what you got?
Well, as of course I agree with the rest of you. I do find it funny when people say, "Well, this can happen anywhere. There's bad people, and all places you go." And to say that it's too ambitious to stop the aggregation of child rape. It wasn't too ambitious for the Catholic Church to colonize the entire planet and to separate children from their families and to bring their faith amongst the entire world population. I think that we can at least call for some accountability to prevent child rapists from touching people, right? I think that that's not too ambitious of an idea. And I think that, as you've mentioned, Cynthia, the world's largest landowners, one of the most powerful religions in this entire planet, can do it. If they really put their minds to it, I think they can. I don't doubt that.
That's right. And I just like to say that, Pope Francis, if he is such a reformer that, everyone calls him that or what have you, then it's up to him, because as secular Rarity said, that he supposedly has a direct line to almighty Sky Daddy to really get this organization under wrap and key, under lock and key, and make sure that there is accountability to the organization for the atrocities that have been committed multiple times under their watch, in their leadership, and everyone knows about it. It's not a secret that, child rapists have been reported in every state in the United States, and just about every country that the Catholic Church has set up dioceses. So if we know that this is a fact, then it is up to this organization's leadership to get it together. And it's not by, turning a blind eye, or trying to change laws to make sure that their punishments are less than somebody else who would have done the same thing but is outside of their organization of protection. And that is what I have to say about that. So I guess we can go ahead and breathe. Indeed. And if, and our audience members, I invite you to breathe as well, because that was a lot. So
Hopefully
breathe
you've
in.
been breathing this whole episode.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I
Yeah,
would hope
yeah,
that too.
I agree. Breathing is good. You should do it all the time.
Mhm.
I definitely recommend breathing. And I also recommend that you all deserve a pat on the back, dedicated viewers, for spreading the good news of the faithless nonprofits. And we have now reached our goal of 10,000 subscribers plus. All right. Yeah. All right.
Mhm.
Oh
Cabbage patch on
yeah.
that.
Oh
That's
yeah.
right. All right. Oh, yeah. And thank you to both our veteran subscribers, and we welcome our new subscribers. This is a fantastic milestone. So now we're able to do fundraisers. So if you are watching us now, please pay attention to the icon at the bottom of our little window, and please give to the ACA. And also, if you have not subscribed yet, please do so right now. Like right now. Like if you want to pause this video and then go ahead and subscribe and then come back, please do that. And also share the link to our channel with your friends, your family members, your coworkers, that neighbor guy you don't like, and everyone else. Send it to Pope Francis, and maybe he'll get it together when it comes to poping. Is that a verb? Poping.
I'm pretty
It
sure
is
that's what it
today.
Yeah.
It is today. So yeah, let's get the word out. And so that we can really start helping with the fundraisers. And once you have subscribed, click the like button below so that you will get a notification bell. Oh, no, you got to get it. Also click on the bell so you can get notifications. So you got to click the likey, the likey thingy. So like, and then click the bell, ding, and then make sure it's turned on so that you are notified every time that a new episode of Nonprofits premieres every Sunday at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. And are you aware that the atheist community of Austin has another YouTube channel? Are you? Did you know? Well, you should be. So check out the Atheist Experience Network, a channel where you can find all ACA shows in podcast form. Subscribe at tiny.cc/AEN podcast to listen to episodes of the nonprofits, the Atheist Experience, secular sexuality, Truth Wanted, and all of our other ACA shows so you don't miss a single episode. Yeah.
Mhm.
I want a show called Sex or Sexuality. I would watch that.
What? What did I call it?
Sex or Sexuality? I would watch
Sensual,
what?
Sexual secularity.
sexual secularity. All that. Yeah. We'll bring it up at the next meeting. I like to change the name of the show because obviously I have a hard time every time I conduct you saying the words. Moving on. We are going to our next segment, and secular rarity. This is all on you. Take us away.
Yeah. So, good news is for all the viewers at home, this is lighter than the last one, but still definitely upsetting. So, right now we have a handful of individuals, inmates actually, in Arkansas that are suing because, well, I don't know if anybody's aware or not, but there's a virus, a particularly bad one, that's kind of been going around the world. And even though we have like really, really well-founded, super successful treatments for it, for some reason, people shun those sometimes. And one place that they did that was in an Arkansas prison. And what they decided to do, see, these prisons, right? In case you're not familiar, folks, there's a lot of people, generally they've committed a crime, not always, but they kind of live there. And so they have a doctor that hangs out, and you would think, well, okay, this person's a doctor. They should be trained. They should know, when to give vaccines or medicine to people for viruses or give them ivermectin for COVID, even though we're, just positive that doesn't work for it. So against their will, unknowingly to these 4 individuals, they were treated for their COVID symptoms and their problems with ivermectin. Now, I will say this, that apparently, this particular doctor is very confident in their ability to treat COVID with ivermectin. Funnily enough, they don't have shit to prove that. So I thought this was the best quote in the article from Gary Sullivan, who is the legal director for the ACLU of Arkansas, said, "No one, including incarcerated individuals, should be deceived and subject to medical experimentation." Now, I know when we hear about people doing bad things to criminals, oftentimes we dismiss it easier. We think, oh my gosh, they've done bad things. Of course. Let me just say this. I personally, I don't give a damn what crime you commit. That does not void your humanity. And we should be absolutely making sure that when somebody does something wrong, instead of just punishing them and driving them into the ground, we should rehabilitate them. We should use science and medicine that we know fucking works. We don't need to experiment. We don't need to lie to them. We need to treat them like humans and bring them back into our society. And I'm excited, honestly. I'm glad that this lawsuit is going forward. I hope it gets a lot of attention, and I hope we change some stuff up in our prisons and our jails. What do y'all think?
Yeah, I have to say it. I totally agree with you. I never thought I was going to be supporting inmates for something, but as you said, they are still human and they have all the right to sue in this case, and I'm going to support their right to do so. Once again, as you said it, a lot of bad people in there. We tend to forget that they are humans, but nope, they are still people and they deserve basic human rights. Yeah, even the worst of the worst, even if we don't like it. But a lot of people are in there, and not because they are awful, just sometimes stuff happens, and there have been wrongly incarcerated people as well. So we should be careful in there. And as you said, yeah, we want them to be punished all the time, but if we have learned something, is that people don't get better by being punished. Violence only generates violence, and experimenting on them is such an extremely violent act against their own humanity, against their human rights. It's awful, it's disgusting, it's terrible. And once again, I understand if you are really upset at criminals. I can totally share that because of many reasons, but these people are still humans, and being awful people doesn't take their humanity away, and it doesn't take their human rights away.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Done?
It's funny because the crew just put in a message. It was literally the exact statistic I was about to bring up, which is that the United States has 22% of the world's prison population. Okay.
I was going to mention the same.
Right. So, I could talk. I mean, this isn't the platform for me to do it. I could talk a lot about prison reform. Okay. I have a lot of strong thoughts about prisons in this country, the private prison industrial complex that we got going on here is pretty bad.
That part, yes.
That part of it. Yeah. So not going to get into that, but what I will talk about is, of course, how we handle healthcare in this country, specifically when it comes to incarcerated individuals. They don't have necessarily the state do it. In this case, it was actually the state, but depending on the prisons, their healthcare systems are going to vary. It's not necessarily going to be that. It's going to be private healthcare, and sometimes that means, like it was for this case, that you're going to get private doctors who just can really have all the power to do their own thing in their prescriptions and in their treatment plans. Now, of course, there's a reason why we have med school. We want to trust all the doctors that are out there and with their individual treatment plans, and we want to trust that we know what they're doing. But in this particular case, this is a doctor who is going against the norm, and this isn't something that we're saying just because this is a political talking point. I mean, ivermectin has been approved for emergency treatment, specifically in countries like Japan and other places worldwide, but specifically in that it's emergency treatment. It's not usually a first line of defense. Most people who practice healthcare seem to agree with this. I'm not a doctor myself. I can't tell you that specifically, but from everything that I've read, ivermectin is not usually your first go-to. Now, you have to ask yourself, why is this animal deworming medicine being used in this particular way? Now, the article itself doesn't say this, but I have a feeling, okay, and it's just a feeling, considering this is an Arkansas prison and that it's this time of the year and this part of the country, that maybe there's some political motivations being specifically involved. Okay, if you're not familiar, the QAnon movement has talked a lot about ivermectin and other, shall we say, related communities as a sort of miracle cure for the COVID-19 virus, and of course, to the detriment of pretty much everybody who's been taking this. Now, the good thing is, a doctor that's actually treating patients like this are probably going to be doing it in responsible doses. So that's actually okay enough that a real legit doctor is seeing these people. Because the big cases that you're seeing right now of people filling up with hospitals and stuff is usually people getting that medication outside of the regular sort of channels. So we can at least say, well, okay, that's all right. But it's still not great that they were given that as their option, right? So we shouldn't expect those people to have the best understanding of how to treat COVID, especially if you're in a prison, you don't get the opportunity to use the internet and read up on all this shit. So they have to trust whatever they're being given is being what's right for them, right? And that's a conversation that we as private individuals get to have with our doctors and figure it out. Not so much when you're in the prison system, right? You don't have as many choices there. You don't always get to have a second opinion on stuff in the way that you want to. So this is very, very unfortunate. Shouldn't happen. It says a lot about America. That's my take.
You said a mouthful, Dan, and what you said. But I guess also I just wanted to add that what is very sad and tragic about this story is that when you look at doctors, as we all mentioned, that you look at a doctor as a person that you trust, that you give, basically your mind and body to diagnose you correctly and treat you correctly for whatever type of dis-ease that you happen to possess. And that's exactly what did not happen here. And when I was going through the article and just looking up a little bit more about the doctor specifically, is that he had his own Facebook page where he was touting how wonderful ivermectin is and how he took it himself and how he also gave it to his family members. And so, it's really cool for you to give ivermectin to people who absolutely have COVID. And no. And I mean, and here's the thing, this is an American doctor who is supposed to go under certain guidelines when it comes to medicine. And, and one of the things that the doctors have is this thing called a Hippocratic Oath. I don't know if you ever heard about it. You know what I'm saying? And the first part about it is do no harm. Do no harm. That is exactly what did not happen here, because the prisoners that were treated with the ivermectin also complain about, really bad side effects, stomach cramps, bloody stools. And, and there are even reports where if you're given too much ivermectin, you can die. And he was absolutely putting these prisoners' lives in jeopardy. According to the article, in the lawsuit, one plaintiff who was just over 6 feet tall and 191 pounds at the time was given 36 milligrams of ivermectin on the first day of his treatment, followed by a 24 milligram dose per day for the next 3 days, totaling up to 108 milligrams. And unsurprisingly, this amount of ivermectin is 6 times the recommended dose for deworming purposes. And previous studies on its use in COVID had rarely surpassed 14 milligrams per day. So he just dousing the fuck out of these prisoners just because in his mind, and also because it has been politicized with QAnon and other people, Dan, that you mentioned follows this particular movement, that this is cool to actually give to people and it's a miracle drug, but it's not. It's absolutely very problematic. And and like I was even mentioning that, the person that we're talking about, his name is Dr. Rob Karras, and he said that he had success using ivermectin. But the thing about it is that these are just claims that he is making, that he has made rather. There is nothing that says or any type of a study that can even corroborate his success that he had with COVID treatment. And it's kind of it's
Yep.
crazy.
The anecdote from a doctor is still anecdote.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's just using those people as guinea pigs. And guys, why is that whenever we see one of these awful crazy conspiracy theories, it's always the extremist right-wing groups, the ones that are creating it? And how can they get to the brain of a doctor, and they have rotten their brain so much that he's doing something as awful as this? I mean, it's a treatment for worms, not for viruses. You are a freaking doctor. How don't you know the difference between a parasite and a virus? You should know this. You should understand that. But he, as you said, most likely is due to political reasons, and maybe he is trying to get a name for himself, but he's going to use his own power, and he's going to turn these prisoners into guinea pigs. And yeah, this tell us awful things, not only about this doctor, but also about the whole system. And about that number, I wanted to mention that I found this interesting meme on Facebook that said, under Stalin, repression was so severe that Soviet gulag held 22% of war's entire population. Just kidding, that's in the United States today. And a friend of mine answered, I love this, what do you expect when you privatize your criminal system? And guys, I've heard that a lot of people, a lot of jails have innocent people over there, and they are there just because they give money to their population. And that's why there are so many people in jail, because the system needs the money. And that's why the health in there is not good. And that's why this type of, should I call him scammer? I don't know. Maybe it's a real doctor and just crazy, I don't know. But these type of people can have all this power and can do this with people, because they don't see people as people. They see people as property, or people as assets. I don't know. And thinking that this doctor felt that he had like the perfect group of guinea pigs to see if COVID was going to be cured by this. It's a dewormer, right? A parasite killer.
Yeah.
For me, it's a crime against humanity. It clearly goes against all human rights that you as a person can have, and even inmates, they are still humans. I mean,
just
really,
to be clear,
sorry.
the ivermectin has been used on humans for various reasons, right? So it's not completely unfounded. But the problem is, it's just not an FDA approved treatment specifically for COVID-19. That is the big problem with this, right?
My problem is that this is something that kills parasites, not viruses. So use something that kills parasites for killing viruses is like using an aspirin to fight a virus. Yeah, I cannot think of better examples.
And we do have. I mean, Dan is correct that yes, we know that ivermectin can be used in humans for stuff, and it has been effective and safe in various treatments. But especially on this, I mean, folks, we know what to do. This isn't difficult. Go take the vaccines. Go get the damn booster. Wear your masks. Wash your hands. We know this. We know this, folks. And when I first read this one, I saw a thread between our first article and this one, and I hope other people see it too, which is the unchecked authority in both situations. The fact that somebody has the absolute total, I'm the dude. You can't go above me. I say it gets done. That leads to problems time and time again, folks. Whether it's a doctor in a jail without somebody to talk to him, whether it's a freaking Pope of the Catholic Church, whether it doesn't matter. Boy Scout troop leader, it doesn't matter. When somebody else is not there to double, triple check us, it just seems that the worst of the worst starts to happen. So let's freaking do something about this already. Like we can fix it. We absolutely can. Do we want to?
Hashtag accountability matters. And even like and I'm just gonna piggyback on what you were mentioning about, what we know what to do. We even have proven treatments for people who happen to get infected with COVID-19 and their symptoms become very severe. Like I talked about this a few times before about my mother having COVID, and she was a pretty severe case because she was hospitalized. But they actually use standard recommended treatments for her COVID infection, and it worked. And also because she was vaccinated, the virus did not go completely mad in her system, and she was able to recover despite being immunocompromised. So I will have to say hello and yay for science. And we need more people to actually concede to science instead of their own personal, emotional, political. I don't even really understand why this whole situation and this whole infection has been politicized. It makes no sense to me. But I'm going to leave it at there, and then we're just going to go ahead and wrap this bad boy up. Secular regular Rarity, you brought us in. Can you give us two more cents?
Yeah,
Before we
that's
move
right.
on?
I brought us into this. I can take us out. But no, I think we all really touched on it well, and I do hope that we see this as a community of humanists, as people that just give a shit about each other and want to try to make the world a better place. This is a really good way to put our money where our mouth is, right? If we're willing to stand up and say you don't get to treat criminals like that. They deserve the same human rights. Like, okay, maybe they don't get to go out to the movies on the weekends, or the roller coaster parks or whatever. Like, fine. But they don't deserve to be frickin' medical experiments just because some dickhead doesn't agree with medical science. That's not right, folks.
No, it ain't. No, it ain't. Well, thank you for that wrap up, Secular Rarity, for bringing us in and taking us out. And uh, so we gonna move on. But before we do, we gonna take a break up on our conversation. We're gonna take a break in our conversation because if you did not tune in to the other ACA shows last week, here is what you missed.
We don't want multiple waves of this transphobia virus. Thank you very much. We don't want new variants of the transphobia virus. We don't want to go through Greek letters of transphobia viruses. No, thank you.
You're attributing obviously a lot of importance to the order, and I think that where the major disagreement comes from here is the origin of that order. Not to be glib, but are you familiar with evolution?
I'm generation old, so it's not a surprise to me really that different cultures and different generations have different attitudes towards sex.
Are you using your mind to come to conclusions?
Don't have any choice.
That's right. Thank you. That's great. Someone answered a question today. I feel great. I'm done. That's it.
Yay, we're done, Kenneth.
God doesn't need to change his mind. He's seen all of time. To suggest that God changes his mind over time would make God subject to time, but God is timeless. See? I can do this shit all day long.
It is always a good time when Matt Dillahunty puts his Jesus hat on. All right. That was a laugh. Y'all supposed to. Very good. Very good. We really need to do rehearsals behind closed doors. But anyway, let's move right along to our next segment, which is a strange but true.
Strange but true.
Whoa, it's me. Whoa, I'm so big on the screen. Hey, everybody, it's Objectively Dan here, and I'm the hosting a story. Well, that's really cool. So of course, because it's me, and because I got asked to be on the nonprofits, of course, it has to do with aliens. Like, I just feel like there's some sort of obligation. I think I signed a contract unconsciously with the ACA that I have to be the aliens guy. So this is a story that I'm choosing to cover today, which I think is to be interesting, and I think I might have a hot take on. So maybe I'll get some pushback. I don't know. We'll see. So the story of this headline is NASA, and this is coming from Changing America. NASA used religious experts to predict how humans may react to aliens. Okay, so specifically, what's happening here is that NASA has decided to fund some research. And specifically into the ideas of what are the theological implications if we were to discover intelligent life. Okay, so religious experts are going to be examining how each of the world's major religions may respond to news that intelligent life exists on other planets. And one of the scholars specifically is focus between astrobiology and Christian theology, and the prospects of there have been many incarnations of Jesus Christ is the quote here. And there's going to be an upcoming book on this. I believe it's going to be released next year on the topic. This study basically is going to be amongst 24 theologians. It's being done through the University of Cambridge. Okay. And this is through the Center for Theological Inquiry, the NASA sponsored program, Center for Theological Inquiry at Princeton University. So, there's a couple different things going on here. NASA is not the sole proprietor, the sole people giving money to this specific organization to be doing this kind of research. And it's not just going to a church. This is going to a college. Okay. This is going to a institution that's going to be doing this research to be ostensibly made available to the public, since they're going to be publishing a book on this. So this is really interesting because, one of the things that the ACA likes to talk about is the separation between church and state. And from the outside, this might look like the government actually giving money to a church, but I don't think this is the case. We're talking about professors who are going to be getting this. We're talking about professional theologians who are going to be talking about the implications of the theology of this. Now, what I think is interesting about this story is not the theological conclusions that they come to, because I think theology is bullshit at the end of the day, right? Like, we all agree theology is bullshit. I think we can all agree with that. Okay. So it's the sociological implications that are going to come from this research that I think are going to be most interesting. Maybe this isn't the best medium to do it, but I want to draw a parallel here. Okay. Let's talk about the COVID-19 virus. Let's talk about how the religious demographic that was least resistant to the pro-vaccine messaging this entire time has been evangelicals. Right? Evangelicals have had a huge sway in the public health of this nation. We are more sick as a nation because of this demographic. And I mean that in no uncertain terms, right? The ones who are most resistant because they actually have a theological basis for their beliefs as to not to get a vaccine. Many of them do, which is such a powerful thing. It really speaks to the power that religion has. So what happens when you have a single government organization that suddenly has to announce to the world that they not only found intelligent life, but they may be the sole proprietors of that communication between that organization and that intelligent life? What do you have? You have a time bomb on your hands, right? Suddenly you become an international target for anybody who wants to get their hands on that technology and figure out what they can do with it and how they want to treat other intelligent life. So obviously there's different things at play here. Some people may want to evangelize to these aliens. Some people may think that they're existential threats and have to be destroyed and could cause political chaos on a level that we literally haven't seen before, because we're talking about extraterrestrial phenomenon. So I think the research of this is interesting from a sociological perspective, not necessarily a theological one. If we had done this sort of research, for example, on how we can better understand theology so that we can make our messaging more effective for COVID-19 vaccinations, we might find that there's going to be less resistance to that vaccine if people can find ways that they can theologically justify it. And I think that NASA's probably interested in doing the same thing here, because when they have to be the ones to announce that, hey, we're the ones that have found this intelligent life, how do we go about doing this? They might have to rely on this kind of research in order to make their messaging most effective, and not say, I don't know, have the whole planet go after them trying to figure out, that if they're telling the truth or not. And also, what can they, again, do with that sort of technology, or do with that sort of information when we figured out that intelligent life is out there on, another planet. So that's my hot take on this. I think that while I'm not sure about the particular application of this like specific action that was done, I do think the idea is an interesting, if not useful, one to pursue. So opening it up to the nonprofits here. Thoughts?
When I first read this article, I was just like, what a gross misuse of funds by NASA to actually do this. I mean, like, I get your point, about actually looking at it from a sociological point of view. So just in case if we actually have communication with an intelligent life outside of Earth, that, we can possibly gauge a way for us to be able to communicate, or even like how other people, depending on their religious affiliation, would react, right? And I guess, like, I don't know, like, I'm in the middle now. I'm in the middle. Like, that could be possibly a thing for you to do in order for you to be able to say, Nanu, what's going on, but, live long and prosper, health and long life, in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. But at the end of the day, I'm like, could we not have used this research for something more important? I don't, and what that would be, I don't know. But but one of the things that I said in my notes is that we have stories, we have myths, we have books, and etc. About life on other planets, and we even have these particular myths and stories that also exist in different religions. So I don't know if that could be more so a way for us to be able to gauge, what humankind would do depending on their religious affiliation, because we already have long histories and scripture and Vedas and et cetera, of all these different things that we can get like a better understanding versus sinking money into this research. But that's just me. I'm gonna Teo.
Yeah, in this case, for me, I'm just sad. I personally feel that it's very, very sad that we live in such a deluded society that we actually need this type of studies, because what I felt that this guy was doing was trying to find an excuse how to justify his own, or that this is what they will try to do, try to justify their own religion, in case that yet another piece of evidence showing that everything in the Bible and other sacred books is totally silly and made up and makes no sense. So they find life outside, and now we have to find a way to make it look like, no, the Bible all the time said that there were aliens and that there were other life, but you atheists didn't understand the Bible.
It's in the Bible.
And and other books. And I have to disagree with Dan in the thing about theology. I do have a guy two of them who have studied theology, and that's why they are atheists. So theology works very well when you are an atheist trying to understand why people believe silly stuff. Well, yeah, that's it. So I don't know, Cynthia, what's your take?
Well, I mean, I see it from a couple of different perspectives, for sure. I mean, where Cynthia was coming from, like, hey, could we have spent the money on something more valuable? Maybe. But I do think Dan has a really good point, especially if our goal is to try to have better communication. If that is what we're trying to do, then this does have value. Even if all of us here are like, okay, so you guys, so you found Martians, yeah, and your Jesus still applies to that? Okay, come on, tell me again. Like, yeah, I think it's silly, that aspect of it, but there is definitely value to understanding what people think when they disagree with us, because how else are we going to combat that, with better ideas? I was a little surprised that they didn't have like psychologists and sociologists and so forth. I thought that would have been a really, really good thing too.
I agree.
And I don't think it was specific. And if I missed it, please y'all tell me. But I don't think it technically said one way or the other. Like, was this all Christian theologians? Was it like half and half?
No, I don't think it was all Christian theologians.
Okay,
I believe
okay.
that it was a representation from different religions.
And that's obviously much better, I think, than just getting a bunch of really smart Christians in the room talking.
The article does say as well that NASA did not get to pick the researchers for this.
Okay,
the program is what's picking it.
Yeah,
right.
And that definitely matters too. Again, I definitely giggled a good bit because I was like, okay, so come on, like if aliens come down tomorrow and they have some like spiritual theology or something, like, are you really telling me that that's going to match up with like KJV Bible better than like Scientology or Raelism? Like, seriously, come on. Still though, I understand both sides. I understand maybe we could have put the money somewhere else, been more effective. But again, if we do want to make a better world, one of the best ways to do that is to really understand what the other side is saying. Yeah. And this is a way to do that.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, like, Christian heaven is not more fun than Stovacor.
Yeah.
Kapla.
I want to make this clear, right? I'm not saying whether or not this specific instance, this particular avenue that's being walked down is a great idea. Personally, I think I would have approached it differently, but I think the idea is still relevant, right? Because as soon as we find intelligent life, exopolitics is suddenly a thing. It's suddenly a thing that exists. Okay. It's real. And not only that, the United States is going to be leaders in that because it's going to be a United States organization that's going to figure this out. How are you going to do it? How are you going to create national policy that's going to affect how you communicate and understand this alien culture and what its citizens are supposed to be in response to that? And to that ends, this makes sense. From an intelligence perspective, I think it makes sense. From a theological perspective, it's all nonsense. Okay, nothing that those people are going to write is going to convince me of the truth of Jesus Christ any more than what I believe right now about Jesus. Right? That's not what my interest is in. I don't think that that's valuable personally to me. But there's also 8 billion people on this planet, and most of them are religious. So if it's going to do something for them that deal with the existential weight that, hey, we're not the only people on this planet, then, hey, we'll give it to them. But, 22 people for writing a book, I'm assuming that's a drop in the budget for NASA, a drop in the bucket, rather, for their budget. I don't know. But
and you're right about that majority of people and being religious. I have to quote, I'm sorry, Cynthia, I'm going to quote from the article.
Yeah.
According to a portion of Davidson's book obtained by the Times, a large number of people would turn to their religion's tradition for guidance if aliens were ever discovered.
I don't think
Which
that's wrong.
stuns me.
I don't think that's wrong.
Sadly, me neither.
I kind of died when I read that quote. I died a little bit on the inside. I just want to put that out there. Like how is meeting ET going to really affect my love of Jesus Christ? I don't know. I mean, like, and for all the years that I was practicing Christianity, I don't ever remember reading anything close to, having conversations with extraterrestrial beings. Spiritual ones, sure, but extraterrestrial ones, not so much.
Just to clarify, wouldn't angels technically be extraterrestrial because
Sure,
they're not
okay.
from Earth?
No,
So I
they're
think that
not,
counts.
but they're
Extraterrestrial
still
beings.
considered spiritual beings.
That's
Like
true.
they
I'm
were
just saying
made by
ETs.
God.
I'm just saying they're ETs.
They're
It's in there.
I just want to
Yeah,
say,
but do they phone home? Do they phone home?
I'm assuming they talk to God if God is home. I don't know. I'm not a
I
fucking
just want to
angel.
say, Dan, I don't know why I had never thought this before, but when you said exopolitics is now a thing, my head just went like, oh my gosh, we're talking Galactic Senate from Star Wars. Instantly,
Listen,
baby.
You're acting like academic literature hasn't been written on this, and it has. Let me tell you.
We need to check
you guys
this
need to
out.
watch Truth and Want It. That's all I'm saying. Point is, it's
shameless
it's
plug
everything.
here.
I'm just saying, look,
Yeah.
the circles I run with, they think on different levels, okay? And not I say run with, but the ones I'm interested in, I don't know. It is it's is it the most practical at this point in time? No, but you know what? Neither was the golden record that Carl Sagan sent to space back in the fucking 70s. But we all thought that shit was cool. None of us were complaining about the goddamn budget when we sent a fucking cool ass record. I'm just saying this is more useful than that, in my opinion. So.
And I'm for finding aliens, so I say let's do it. I don't think they're here now, but let's keep looking.
I know, and I personally think that we could probably be more apt to finding aliens, maybe in our lifetime. I don't know.
Well, we'll see if the James Webb Telescope tells us some exciting stuff. Just got launched, so we'll see. We'll see.
I have always believed that we're going to find life, but not as advanced or that are in a similar state than us. Nothing like, oh yeah, they're coming in fly saucers to steal cows and draw silly stuff. No, but we could find some animals. But once again, sorry, my brain suddenly was what are people going to do if we do find other animals in other planets and this proves evolution and suddenly they cannot say, oh no, God created the world 6,000 years ago and all evolution which has been proven over and over is false.
They're still gonna say it. You're assuming that new evidence is going to change people's mind. That
hasn't stopped them before.
Why do I have hope in humans? Oh, Carson. You're right, Dan. You are right. You're right. I should have learned after all these years. Shame on me.
Well, Dan, since you brought us in, go ahead and give us a wrap up of your final thoughts for this before we move on to our final segment.
Okay. Anybody else want to give final thoughts, or am I just wrapping up?
Oh, I was just going to say, all we need is a federation now. Now we need the federation.
Listen, it's going to happen. I don't know. Like I said, I think I've said all wanted to say on this particular topic. Okay. I don't want to be the one guy that came on here and had a really hot take about fucking aliens and NASA and then just peace out, because that's weird. I think
you want to have sex with aliens?
No, well, I mean, like point is
it's not Thursday.
It's not Thursday.
Maybe for you guys.
You have to start with the premise. We find intelligent beings. What next? Right? For a government, that's actually kind of important. Like a lot of policy, like a lot of people don't realize this, but like even the fucking UN has like written policy about this. I'm pretty sure. Lots of people have actually kind of thought out the logical implications of what you have to do, because from a military perspective, even like you have to be ready to figure that out, because that's going to affect what your country is going to be like in relation to other countries, in terms of intelligence, in terms of technology and stuff. So again, is it sci-fi? Is it out there? Absolutely. But when you're fucking NASA, you got to think about that shit. So I think that there's some justification for it. Maybe not this particular avenue, but the idea is interesting nonetheless.
Before we close, I just want to say, if they are sentient and sexy, we do need alien-resistant condoms.
Did it just get hot? I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. Sorry.
Oh my gosh. Well, I think that is a perfect way for us to segue into one of my favorite interesting. Oh my goodness. Shit Internet Apologists Say.
Shit Internet Apologists Say.
Well, instead of saying shit Internet Apologists Say, I think that we should say this is shit Internet Apologists Spray.
Oh, that'll become clever in just a few seconds.
It really will. It really will. Just like, putting the world under hostage for $1 million. But I digress. So we're actually coming from an article from the Business Insider written by Mary Meisenzel, and it is concerned about an Oklahoma pastor that apologizes for spitting on a churchgoer. So a little synopsis of this particular happening. Pastor Michael Todd of Transformation Church based in Tulsa, Oklahoma, or as I like to call him, Reverend McSpitty, apologized on Twitter for rubbing his spit on a member of his church as captured in a viral video. So what happened is that during a Sunday sermon, Pastor Todd asked for a volunteer to come to the stage, and the man on the stage next to Todd was identified as his brother, Brenton Todd, and according to the Tulsa World. Now, what he ends up doing now is that he then spits on his hand, kaput, and before rubbing his brother's face on stage in front of his congregants. And just before spitting on his hand, Todd said that he was receiving vision from God and it might get nasty. Yeah. So now this particular demonstration that he was actually utilizing was from the book of Mark, starting from the 22nd verse. And Mark 8, 22nd verse. And it says that they came to Bethesda and some people brought a blind man and begged Jesus to touch him. And then he took the blind man by the hand and led him outside the village. When he had spit on the man's eyes and put it on him, Jesus asked, "Do you see anything?" And he looked up and said, "I see people. They look like they're walking around, like trees walking around." Once more, Jesus put his hands on the man's eyes, and then his eyes were open and his sight was restored, and he saw everything clearly. And I'd just like to say that this particular story, again, a parable, was referencing a blind man. My dude, Reverend Todd, your brother's not blind. He's not.
It's true.
And I'm going to leave it at there.
Not legally.
He wasn't blind, so
I mean, are you sure he wasn't blind? Maybe now he is not blind, and it's a miracle. You never know.
Well, just real quick, I know this isn't the point of this, but you know that Bible story didn't happen like that, right? Like Jesus walked up to the guy, spit in his face, and then he was like, "What do you see?" And the guy was like, "I don't know. There's spit all over my eyes. Like I can't see anything."
Oh my gosh, I got worse. It got worse.
Are you doubting the Bible, secular? Come on, you.
Well, look,
so guys,
if you're hanging out at a group and the leader of that group is like, "Let me just rub this on your face real quick, prove you love me or something," like just don't hang out there anymore. Like don't hang out there anymore. It's not. If you want to do that, consensual adults doing consensual adult things, do your thing. Absolutely all in favor of that. And I don't advise you do necessarily go watch the video, but if you watch the video, dude's brother is like not excited. Like it is obvious he is not having a good time. So
I was going to go with a joke in there, but you mentioned something very important about leaving the group, and I have to get serious in here. Sorry, guys, for killing the mood, but that is an important part of the cult mentality. You have to trust the leader fully. So if they do something awful, you have to stick to that because it's just a test, and you're part of the group, so you have to stay with the group. Actually, if you remember about this guy from Jamestown, before he killed everybody, he used to have a lot of how were they called? These death simulations. So they could simulate that they were going to be killed until it really happened. And if you didn't want to be part of that, you immediately were going to be rejected or punished or forced to do it. So sadly, all this stuff of if this guy is going to do this and you don't want to leave that group doesn't work with groups because of how strong cult mentality catches you. So sorry, secular, that I'm killing the mood with this. And another point, a point that I wanted to make about the video is that this guy, he's used to being the leader. He's used to doing whatever he wants to do. And when I'm pretty sure that he's not apologizing because he realized that what he did was wrong, especially at a time like this when we are dealing with COVID, and you know how COVID spreads, right? Through our mouths and what we spit. Yes. Exactly. Thank you, Cynthia. No so I'm pretty sure that this guy is not apologizing because he realized that what he did is wrong. He's just apologizing because the video went viral and everybody is talking about it, and he's most likely losing churchgoers and stuff like that. But I don't believe for a second that he regrets doing what he did.
Well, just
Not
to
at all.
interject, he did say that he did watch the video back of his sermon, especially that particular part where he spit on his brother, and he said, "Yeah, it was disgusting." And I realized that that was kind of nasty, and he said that I was trying to make the word of God come alive, but I'm like, if it, and I said this before, and I'm gonna say it again, and then I'm gonna give it over to you, Dan. You know, there is nothing that a human being can do to make God's word come alive. It either is alive or it's not. God is supposedly an all powerful, omniscient, so omnipotent, omniscient, and every and omnipresent being. So if God is all of these things, then God's word in of itself is powerful enough. And the only thing that you are there for is just to, I guess, be an instrument or what have you. But you having to do all this other particular things in order for the word to come alive is absolutely ridiculous. And Dan, you looking like you itching to
Oh
talk
yeah.
about the spitting. So go
Let's talk
ahead.
about the spitting specifically.
Mhm.
I want to talk about what are the motivations behind an action like this, because most people, I think, would reasonably look at a situation like this and call this extreme. So why does this even happen in the first place? And for people who've never grown up in a religious community, this might be confusing. But religious community, again, it's and even though we just talked about this, it is more about than just the theology. It is more than just the philosophy. It is the social cohesion that helps bind you and help gives you an identity within your group. And these kinds of groups, a sociologist might call a high cost group. And I just pulled the definition here. The high cost groups are defined as the most demanding, high cost, theologically and culturally exclusive religious groups. And it's in these groups that members face high levels of participation, as well as restrictions on behavior and social interactions. And it also means that it's going to make you pull to go to extreme acts in order to identify yourself within that group and form that group cohesion. You'll see that in smaller instances like baptism. What does baptism mean to the person who's not a Christian? Doesn't mean anything. But to a Christian, it means much more. It means your commitment to the identity of being a Christian. And in this sense, and when you have a belief system that says you can literally do anything, if you have enough faith, if you have enough trust, then you should be able to do even the most insane looking acts, right? The craziest looking stuff. And you just got to do it because that is what your group compels you to do. And in that sense, it doesn't surprise me that an act like this would happen. I think it's sad, but in that religious environment, it can only come from. I mean, this can only come from an evangelical church, right? This isn't the I don't know, the Methodists down the street probably aren't going to be doing something like this. It's going to be from that particular theological background that really kind of influences these specific behaviors, if not because there's just one specific Bible reference or two of Jesus like healing blind people, which is weird. But yeah.
Hi, Vay. I mean, like, one of the things that he also said that he did encourage everybody to watch the entire sermon because there is some truth in there in life that potentially can change your whole life. And yeah, boy, I tell you, if I was watching you spitting on somebody, that would change my life too, sir. Just saying. But I just, wow. The, out of the church has come a lot of different weird and wild stuff, as as Mr. Carson used to say back in the day. And and we have and because there's some weird and wild claims inside the Bible, we had people over the years to try to demonstrate said things in order for it to, as Pastor Todd said, make the word come alive. But it always falls short because it's just a claim, people. It is just a claim. But I am going to leave it at that and get some final thoughts in the round table. And Teo, I'm coming right at you. Take it away.
Yeah, well, oh, thank you. Well, I wanted to mention some things, some stuff I was going to say that pastors are used to this. They slap people in the face, they punch other people in their sermons, so this is not uncommon. And Cynthia, when you said, oh yeah, but he said that he saw his video and he felt it wasn't right, let me quote The Simpsons. Duffman says a lot of things. Oh yeah, but that doesn't mean that he really regrets that. So yeah, this is just another example of the guy being, or pastors abusing their power. And only now he's just apologizing as if that was enough. And not because he's sincere, according to me. I may be wrong, of course, I know that. But mostly just because of this backlash that he's having. And that's it. No other reason for that, according to me.
But you know, if he actually fixed his vision, he wouldn't have to apologize, you know. I mean, if he did improve it, right?
I mean,
like, would you
got us there, Dan? You got
I'm just saying. Look, I'm not wearing my contacts right now. I'm waiting on some new ones. If somebody could fucking spit in my eye and suddenly I'm healed, I'm gonna forgive him. I'm gonna be like, damn, you just saved me like $300. Like, that's awesome.
LASIK is expensive. Yeah.
I can't even get LASIK. My eyes are too bad. But anyway, it's a whole thing.
Eyes are expensive, so I totally understand.
I gotta say, I think my favorite part, okay, of the article and the video is right here, where there is an audible gasp. Like the oxygen is just gone from the church in a second, okay? And I just have to read you the quote, because I gotta say, Pastor Todd, what a good interpretation of that gasp. Pastor Todd says, how you just reacted is how the people in your life will react when God is doing what it takes for the miracle.
I fucking love that shit. It's a Jesus juke, dude. Classic Jesus juke.
It was amazing.
It's so
that was
good.
amazing.
No,
Pastor Todd. No, they're guessing because you just spit in your freaking hand.
What a rhetorical. I mean,
you're disgusting.
Talk about sticking the fucking landing, though. I mean, God.
10 out of 10 on it.
I gotta say, it's creative.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
You know, I mean, I heard some good ones over the years, people. I've heard some good ones over the years. I tell you, and Pastor Todd, you just took the cake, sir. Oh my gosh. Well, guys, I really did enjoy our conversation today. And, and I'm so glad that you all were able to just join us this afternoon for this particular conversation on the nonprofits, and just want to encourage you all to join our fan social media outlets. And you can find most of the nonprofits host at, I'm going to make this bigger because I can't see. We just talked about not seeing, right? And I can't see either. I can wear my glasses. Somebody
I got you, Cynthia.
Oh, come on. No, please don't react. Don't reenact that. We don't want to see that.
Okay. Okay. Mulligan. So you can find most of the nonprofit hosts on the atheist community of our Discord by going to tiny.cc/ACD Discord, and on Facebook at tiny.cc/FBNP. And if you would like to support the show, you can do so by becoming a patron at tiny.cc/PatreonNP. And if you find yourself already shopping at Amazon, support the atheist community of Austin by shopping at smile.amazon.com and selecting the atheist community of Austin as a beneficiary. And be sure to use that link to help out the ACA. We appreciate it. And people, we value your feedback. We really, really do. We were just talking about how we would love to see more comments and more emails. So tell us what you like and what you don't like in the comments, or talk about how Cynthia can't see and Dan needs to spit in her eye one more time. I don't know. Or you can email us.
Patron bonus.
Yeah, it really is a patron. Oh my God. All right. But you can email us at nonprofits@atheist-community.org. So we really do appreciate you all if you could yabba dabba do that. And if we can just get some final phrases from the crew Well, the panel rather. Secular Rarity.
Friends don't let friends spit on friends' haircuts or faces, or just don't spit on your friends, people. Stop it. That's it. That's all I got.
Good advice. I started saying that I was very happy to be surrounded by people, by these awesome, amazing, cool people. And then, guys, we start talking, and you behave like this, and you totally reinforce that idea. So, thank you guys for being awesome. Yes, best episode ever, baby.
Yes. And for mine, I'd like to take my time to announce my official campaign is starting today for president of the Interplanetary Federation. And so I will be the one making those policy decisions. And I appreciate your votes. So thank you. Appreciate it. Mm-hmm.
Dan, you got my vote. You got my vote. And
I don't think actually as the ACA, you can't even endorse me. I don't think we're even allowed to do that. So nix that,
damn.
I guess.
Yeah. Mulligan.
Even wait, does it count for fictional government systems? I wonder what the law would have to say about that. We're probably gonna get this cut out.
Well, you know, hell, it was we had a whole Star Wars. I just got to say that. We really did.
You can vote for me in your minds.
I tried to implement theocracy, and they didn't let me, so they are not going to endorse you either, Dan. Sorry.
Damn.
That's a big ticket.
Well, it really is. Well, everybody just just don't run for a damn thing. How about that?
All right. That's it. Cynthia's advice. Don't fucking listen. Activism, that shit. Cynthia's like, just go home.
Run for lunch, I'm hungry.
And on that note, we are out of here. Everybody, again, thank you so much for tuning in. Secular Rarity, Ateo, Objectively Dan. Guys, please make sure that you actually tuning into Truth Wanted 7 p.m. on Fridays.
Yes.
And make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you, if you have stuff to say, call. I mean, all that.
I also host on Talk Heathen as well, so you should definitely check that out too.
Yes.
If you haven't already.
Yes, there's cross hosting going on in the ACA at all times. So make sure you all are watching the shows. Make sure you're subscribing. Make sure you're sharing. Make sure you're doing all that jazz hands right there. Okay, I got you. And on that note, people, thank you again for tuning in. Hasta la vista. And next week we will be back.
Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.